Willpower and tenacity are related to motivation, but they're not quite the same. I think we should think of motivation as the verb state that moves us from, let's just say, apathy to tenacity. Okay, so it's the verb function that moves us along that continuum. Apathy at one end, tenacity and willpower, strong exertion of willpower at the other end. One of the most interesting structures in the entire nervous system is one that gets very little coverage, unfortunately. In fact, most neuroscientists aren't aware of what its function is, and it's called the AMCC, which is the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. You have one on each side of the brain. The name isn't really important, but we want to, to the credit of the structure, we should name it the AMCC. The AMCC receives inputs from a lot of interesting brain areas related to reward, related to autonomic function, so how alert or sleepy we are, to prediction error. It's a hub for many, many inputs and outputs. Individuals that are dieting or resisting some sort of tempting behavior and are successful in doing that, the size and activity in their AMCC goes up over time, and the structure gets bigger. Dieters who fail, flat or downward trajectory of the size and activation of the AMCC. We always hear that you lose brain mass across your lifespan. Well, most of it is from the AMCC. And beautifully, and this is two of my favorite results that really bring this around to a protocol or a takeaway, if people are given an easy task, the AMCC isn't activated. If they're given a hard task, in particular a hard task, physical or cognitive, that they really don't want to do, the AMCC levels of activity go through the roof. The theory that's starting to emerge is that the AMCC isn't just about tenacity and willpower to push through hard things, that it may actually be related to one's will to live, one's will to continue living. I think we're finally approaching a time in human history where we accept at the level of the scientific community all the way through to wellness and just generally that the brain and body are intimately linked at the level of what if you want to improve your body, do something for your mind. If you want to improve your mind, do something for your body. From a longevity standpoint, we know that maintaining healthy nerve to muscle function, neuromuscular junctions, is one of the things that resistance exercise does, and it's highly correlated with cognitive function into older age. The thing you want to do the least, that's actually the thing where you stand to build up your AMCC the most. So for me, that would be language learning or learning of musical instruments. Two things that I love music, and but it's just so hard for me. So it sits there on the shelf as a possible way to activate the AMCC. But in terms of actual resistance training has an interesting property that I haven't heard discussed before that pertains to men and women who do it, which is unlike cardiovascular training. During a resistance training bout, because of the blood flow to the muscle, the so-called pump, you get a little window into what the potential progress would look like. Someone who gets into exercising regularly, both resistance training and cardiovascular training, you're getting improved blood flow, you're getting far less inflammation of the brain. Inflammation is cognitive depleting, reducing inflammation, cognitive enhancing. That's absolutely true across the board, right, in animal studies and in humans. In addition to that, there are a lot of bloodborne factors, two of which I'll just highlight now, just for sake of time only two. First of all, when we do cardio, that it positively impact brain health and memory in particular. So when we do load-bearing cardiovascular exercise, so running as opposed to swimming, anything where the skeletal system is under some load, there's a hormone that's literally secreted from bone. I know we don't normally think of bones as endocrine organs, called osteocalcin. Osteocalcin is released from the bones under these load-bearing conditions. It can cross the blood-brain barrier, and we know that it plays an active role in promoting not just new cell production, but because that's a more minor component of neuroplasticity, but enhancement of nerve health and function in the hippocampus, which is an area that's instrumental for the formation of new memories. So there's something about movement of the body that signals to the brain, we're moving. You actually need to maintain or perhaps even enhance your ability to remember things. When we exercise, and that's a broad statement, exercise, or word rather, cardiovascular and resistance training, it creates a cocktail that then crosses into the blood-brain barrier that then creates a milieu of general growth, health, or at least maintenance of cognitive tissue that's there. Exercise is absolutely one of the best ways to improve brain function over time, is that it's not one specific thing, crossword puzzles or social engagement or exercise, it's all of those things. But let's not forget the superagers, the people who are constantly trying things that are difficult, that are pressuring themselves a bit to do things that are difficult. Those people are offsetting, as far as we know, all of the major shrinkage of these brain structures that normally would shrink as people age. So combination of resistance training and cardiovascular training is, let's just face it, like you can't do one and not the other. If you want to be healthy all around, healthy of heart, healthy of body, healthy of mind, cognition improved or at least maintained as we age, you got to do both. Many of the mental health issues that we see nowadays in young people and in adults is the consequence of disrupted circadian rhythms because of a lot of time in a two-dimensional screen space, which I'm not condemning. I spend time on and put out most of my content on social media and YouTube, Apple, Spotify, right? And in addition to that, the lights are too bright at night and they're not getting enough sunlight during the day. And an important thing to understand about our circadian/health, circadian system and health is that in the morning and throughout the day, your eyes are less sensitive to light and you need more of it in order to get what you need, okay, broadly speaking. And at night, your eyes are far more sensitive to artificial lighting and you need far less of it in order to disrupt your circadian system in bad ways, disrupt your mental health. If you consume a lot of information about the powers of stressful states to bring out your best, you will perform better. If you consume a lot of information about the power of stress to cripple you, you will perform worse. The way to overcome procrastination is to do something harder than the hard thing that you're putting off. The feeling that I get having actually accomplished some small percentage to large percentage of what I was set out to do feels so unbelievably rewarding to me. And I know that it also enhances the social interactions I'll have. It's like a feeling of self-satisfaction that transcends to an ability to show up with more clarity of mind. If one is constantly moving their attention from one thing to the next, it undermines the stability of all the circuitry in the brain that's responsible for prolonged focus. Now, I partake in social media, so do you, but the scroll function is a practice of shifting focus while maintaining gaze in one location. That, for instance, when you walk into a room, it's a new context. And it would be the same as if you were walking through a library. And let's say you go to a soccer, European football game, and you sit down and all of a sudden your brain calls up all these books about European soccer and your favorite team is right there. And then unbeknownst to you, this is the important part, the books all around you, not the one you're looking at, are now changing to the competitors and the history of that team. That's the way the brain works. It's calling up context so that it makes it very easy to flit to a discussion about a particular rivalry in a particular year, in a particular match, in a particular point and player. That's focus. Focus is not about maintaining a single tunnel of cognition. Focus is about calling to mind all these additional contextually relevant batches of information that you might need. Social media is the opposite of that. It's one library. Next account, another library. The human brain is an incredible organ because it's a map of our experience. 2020, the pandemic hits, and I thought maybe I'd write a book, and then I realized, my lab works on stress, and I've got some tools for stress and improving sleep. I'm not going to talk about vaccines because that just seems like a barbed wire topic. People are losing jobs for that. You can't win that conversation. At the time, it felt crazy, and it was. And I thought, I'm not a virologist anyway, but I'm just going to teach stuff by going on podcasts. So 2020, I was just really concerned for the world. Frankly, I was like, listen, I know the guy who's the director of the National Institutes of Mental Health. I don't see one soundbite. Sorry, Josh, but I don't know you well enough to kind of poke at you, but if it wasn't him, no advice on get regular sunlight, stay on a circadian rhythm, learn some stress mitigation techniques. It was like, and the world's kind of falling apart due to stress. And I'm thinking, okay, no one's going to step up. I'm just going to do this. And I wasn't selling a book. I didn't have a podcast. It was just giving information. And then this last year is where the funds really started for me because I could start to include people that are to some of my other longstanding interests, like Andy Galpin on fitness or Lane Norton on nutrition and things that relate to other interests of mine, but still keeping it in a scientific frame.